So for the first talk, we will hear again from Dr. Olivier Gibe, and he will talk about renormalized solutions with L1 data.
So thank you very much. So I will, okay, I start to share my presentation. So I hope that everything is okay for you.
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you. So
so
because
far,
I don't know what you have on your screen. So it
Step
is
to three.
Step
you
three.
get,
yeah,
you
good,
get,
very
yeah,
good, because
go
it
to
is
step 3. Yeah.
the way of life now, that is to teach to teach or to talk, to make research in front of the screen. So I will continue the proof for the existence of a renormalized solution. So just to recall the situation, because it is not okay, it is not easy to cut the proof in two parts with one day. Okay, so I recall that we want to prove the existence of a renormalized solution. So that is, we have an L1 data problem, and also we have a matrix field, which is a matrix A, which is not bounded, uniformly bounded. So it is the two main difficulties. And what we want is to solve in a good way this kind of equation. So as usual in PDE, we start from an approximate problem, and we truncate, in fact, the matrix A with the matrix A epsilon, and we take an approximation of F, which is F epsilon, which is in L2, and we assume that F epsilon goes to F strongly in L1. So the first step was to have two a priori estimate. The first one is that the truncate, so I recall that the truncate is the most important function in the L1 literature. So the first estimate is that the truncate are bounded in H10, because in fact, I recall that the way to define the regularity of the solution is made through the truncates. And the second estimate is a uniform control of the set where U epsilon is large. Okay, so the two are very important. The step 3 that I wrote again a few minutes ago is to extract some subsequence. So for this, we use the famous Redlich-Kondrasov theorem, and of course a diagonal process, okay, because we need to have some countable subsequences. And the subsequence is denoted by epsilon. So what we have the existence of some family of function UK belonging to H10, and we have the two the convergence, so the weak convergence in H10, and the strong convergence, or the almost everywhere convergence of the TK of U epsilon to UK. So next, what I at the end of the proof yesterday. So we know. So in fact, there is different approach to construct the solution U, because in fact, what is important is that if you truncate, as I explained yesterday, if you truncate more a truncate, then it is a truncated more. Okay, so with the K and K prime. So another way is to show that U epsilon is a Cauchy sequence in measure. So I recall the notation, because I did not define yesterday this notation, but I hope that it was okay for all people. That when I denote the set U epsilon, the absolute value of U epsilon greater than K, it is understanding as the set of the set of the subset of omega x, such that U epsilon of x is in the absolute value of epsilon of x is greater than K. So with the following inequality, it is not difficult to understand that U epsilon is a Cauchy sequence in measure. For this, first we define the value of k because we have the uniform estimate of the set where u epsilon is large. So we know that we can if delta is a positive real number, we can define k such that for any epsilon, the set the set where u epsilon, the absolute value of u epsilon is greater than k, is the measure of this set is less than delta. Then we use, because k now is fixed, so we can use the fact that tk of u epsilon converged almost everywhere. So we know that it is also that tk of u epsilon is a Cauchy sequence in measure. So we know that there exists some epsilon 0 which is greater than 0, such that for any epsilon sufficiently small, any epsilon and epsilon prime, then the measure of the set where the difference of tk of u epsilon and tk of u epsilon prime is absolute value is greater than eta, then this set has a measure which is less than delta. So at the end, we obtain the famous, we obtain that the measure of u epsilon minus u epsilon prime, the absolute value of u epsilon minus u epsilon prime greater than eta is less than 3 delta. So that is u epsilon is a Cauchy sequence in measure, and then it is well known that up to a subsequence, still denoted by epsilon, we have u epsilon goes to, so there exists a measurable function function u defined from omega into R bar, such that u epsilon goes to u almost everywhere in omega. Okay, now we want to prove that tk of u epsilon belongs to each one 0. That is a question. And also another question is to prove that u is finite almost everywhere in omega. So in fact, it comes from some easy identification, because we know that because for any k, so here I have some k in the natural number, that we know that tk of u epsilon goes to uk almost everywhere, and also each one 0 weak. So by easy identification, we deduce that, because you know that tk of u epsilon goes to tk of u almost everywhere. So since the limit is unique up to 0 set, so we deduce that uk equal to tk of u, and then we have what we want. That is tk of u belongs to each one 0. Another point is that we want to know that u is finite almost everywhere, and to obtain this, in fact, it comes from the fact that the lim as m goes to plus infinity of the lim sup of epsilon goes to 0 of the set where u epsilon is large. So we know that it is, this set is equal to the limit of the measure. Sorry, it is a measure here. Is equal to 0. So it implies that u is finite almost everywhere in omega. So here the conclusion of step 3 is that the the constructed function U is a candidate to be a renormalized solution of our problem. Of our problem 1. So here it is the very first step. The step really is important. It is the construction of the solution by some identification. So it is usual in the PDE, in the study of PDE, to use such term. So and we, of course, as usual, the main important is the compactness of the Sobolev space into some Lebesgue space with the appropriate exponent. Okay, so now we the step. I continue with the step 4. Which is, so if I recall that very important, it is in the definition. So it is, of course, if it is in the definition, it is very important. A very important condition. So I recall this because is that the uniform, the decay of the energy which is okay. I have to erase it. So the uniform decay of the energy is that this limit is equal to 0. So in some sense, in the step 4, it is of course it is a stronger. It is stronger, but it is due to the fact that we have F epsilon goes to F strongly in L1. So in fact, we have a uniform control of the decay of the truncated energy. And it is, as in the definition, and to obtain, as I explained, as I tried to explain, it is crucial to have this condition to obtain stability result, to obtain uniqueness result. And also in the proof of the existence, it is crucial to obtain this decay, because in fact, what we don't know what is we have only some weak limit. So as usual in PDE, the difficulties are to identify the weak limit and to obtain some almost real limit, some convergence, some strong convergence, and so on. So how to obtain this? So to obtain this step 4, we take we know that the function Tn of u epsilon belongs to each one 0, okay, because it is the usual, it is the composition of a Lipschitz function with which is 0 in 0 and a function which belongs to each one 0. So we can use this function as a test function in the approximate problem. So what we have that the integral of an omega of u epsilon Tn of u epsilon plus the integral of the matrix field A epsilon x u epsilon, gradient u epsilon, gradient Tn of u epsilon is equal to the integral of f epsilon, Tn of u epsilon. So I recall it is due to Stampacchia. But also I use this yesterday, that I recall that the gradient of Tn of u epsilon is equal to this function. So we can we have also that u epsilon, Tn of u epsilon is a non-negative function. So what we obtain that the integral of on u epsilon less than n of the term coming from the divergence operator a epsilon x u epsilon gradient u epsilon is less than, so I can put I can put some absolute value, for example, and I have this. Okay. So now we want to pass to the limit as epsilon goes to 0. Okay, so here it is not, so what you have? You know that f epsilon goes to f strongly in L1. You know that Tn of u epsilon goes to Tn of u almost everywhere plus bounded. So in fact, you have the L infinity weak star. So it implies that the term, this integral, so the integral of the absolute value of f epsilon Tn of u epsilon goes to the integral of the absolute value of f Tn of u, and I take also the absolute value. So here you have this limit. So you deduce what you deduce? You deduce first that the lim sup as epsilon goes to 0 of so I will divide by n, because I have to divide by n at the end. So you obtain that the lim sup as epsilon of the term that I want to control. So you know that this the limit is less than the absolute value of f multiplied by the absolute value of Tn of u. Okay, so to obtain this, I need only to have the almost everywhere convergence of Tn of u epsilon. Okay, and of course the lower order term is not important here, because this lower order term is non-negative. Okay, so now I want to pass to the limit as n goes to infinity. So I will add a page. So I put again what we have, because it is, so we know that we have this inequality. So now it is sufficient to use the Lebesgue theorem and to use the Lebesgue theorem, because what do you have? So now we want to have n goes to plus infinity. So you know that f multiplied by Tn over n is a function which is non-negative and which is less than f. And this function belongs to L1. Okay, because it is what we assume f belongs to L1. Moreover, you know that u is finite almost everywhere. So you obtain that Tn of u over n goes to 0 as n goes to plus infinity almost everywhere in omega. So you obtain that the function f multiplied by t, the absolute value of Tn of u over n, goes to 0 as n goes to plus infinity almost everywhere in omega. Then it is sufficient the Lebesgue, it is sufficient to use the Lebesgue theorem. So then the Lebesgue dominated convergence theorem, sorry, there is no, gives that the limit as n goes to plus infinity of the right-hand side of the inequality, the green inequality, is equal to 0. So we can conclude. So then, conclusion, we obtain the step 4, which is the limit as n goes to plus infinity of the lim sup as epsilon goes to 0 of the term of this term is equal to 0. So we don't know what is the limit as epsilon goes to 0, but we have a uniform control in n, and this uniform control in n gives that this limit is equal to 0. And also remark that this term is positive. Okay, the term is non-negative because the matrix is elliptic. So that is the step 4, and it is you will see where this limit why this limit is crucial to obtain that u is a normal solution. So if we make some information point about what we obtain, so it is the next slide. Okay, so I will put I will send the slide to the colleague, and the slide will be available in the morning in France. Okay. So as a consequence, what we obtain? We obtain that for any k, tk of u belongs to each one 0. So which is in our definition. So it is so we now see. Okay, I forget to write that u is finite almost everywhere. Okay, because and we know that for any k, all the truncate of u belongs to H1 0. So for the decay of the energy, in fact, it is a consequence of the fact that, okay, it is I will write, it is a consequence that for n large, I epsilon of x Tn of u epsilon is equal to A of x Tn of u epsilon. It is a consequence of the fact that the matrix is elliptic, the ellipticity condition, and it is a consequence of the fact that u epsilon goes to u almost everywhere, and the fact that Tn of u epsilon goes to Tn of u. So I can put here, for example, a gradient. The gradient of Tn of u goes to the gradient on Tn of u weakly in L2. And in fact, it is the lower semi-continuity of the weak convergence. So you obtain the decay of the energy. And here also it is a step 4. So if you combine all this information, you can show that you have the decay of the energy. So here what we have the first point of the definition, that is the truncate of the solution of U belongs to H1 0, and we have also the last point in the definition, that is the decay of the energy. So to conclude the proof of the existence of solution, that is to prove that U is what is the expected renormalized solution, we need to prove that this the equation I recall that which is formally you multiply the equation you multiply formally this equation by h of u, okay, which is true, which is valid in the sense of distribution. Or more generally, as I explained in the introduction, because it is important, or more generally, you can take a test function belonging to L infinity of omega on H1 0. So, so what is how to prove this? Because in fact, the main remark, because it is important to remark that, because it is the difficulty, c'est que we have only weak limit of the gradient of Tn of u epsilon. So we don't know the precise behavior of the just to give an image of the difficulty, some intuition about the difficulty. That is, we don't know what is the behavior. So in fact, what it does not, what, for example, to take h of u epsilon phi with phi belonging to C infinity of omega as a test function does not work. Sorry, as a test function does not allow to conclude, because we have a quadratic term of some weak limit, so of dn of u epsilon. So we don't know. We cannot. You can try. You can. It is sufficient to write and to remember all the information, and then you can understand that it is not possible just by taking the function to take this function to pass to the limit. Okay, so in fact, what we have, if you have in mind some variational problem for which you have some identification question. In fact, the question is similar, but here we have to play with the truncate. So we cannot take, because in general, what you have in the variational case, you take u epsilon as a state function, and at the end you have some energy condition. Okay, and because you have the convergence of the energy, then you can recover some strong convergence. But here it is not the case. So how to do? So the way to perform the passing to the limit is to use also a usual function in the L1 for the L1 technique. It is a function hn. So here I put only the picture of the function hn. So what is important? It is the function goes to 1. Okay. It is important to see that the function. So the function is not derivative for any year, but you have that this function more or less is equal to the characteristic function of S okay, almost everywhere in omega, in R, sorry. So here it is important, and it is important to have in mind that h prime of n, h prime n, on the uniform decay, the decay of the truncated energy are linked. Okay, so here it is a function which is heavily used in the randomized work. So what we take the test function, which is not, as I explained, h of u epsilon phi, but we will take, in fact, so I fixed a function h, which is Lipschitz continuous and with a compact support. A function phi, which is very regular, so in C infinity and with compact support in omega. And because here I have sufficient regularity to observe that, in fact, the function hn, so of u epsilon h of u phi belongs to L infinity and each one 0 of omega. And also I have the fact that the gradient of this function is equal to the sum of 3 terms, which are h prime of u epsilon h of u phi gradient u epsilon plus n of u epsilon h prime of u phi gradient u plus the term, the most regular term, which is hn of u, h of u, h of u epsilon, h of u, gradient of phi. So I don't remember. Okay. So I recall that. So what we put this function in the formulation in the approximated problem. So you have that, so I will only write the, and it is important to, so you have this equality, which is valid for any epsilon, any and any n. Okay, so here it is equality, what we have for any epsilon greater than 0, for any n greater than 1. Okay, so now the m is to pass to the limit. So I will know in the next slide, I will split the term coming from the divergence into 3 terms. So what we have, so we have this equality. So here, yes, everything seems to be okay. And then what we know, we want to study the behavior at each term. So it is important to also to have in mind what is the order, in fact. So the order is, because if we put n, first n goes to infinity, it is not useful, because if we put u epsilon, if first n goes to infinity, it is the same than using, in fact, so in fact, no, it is not possible, because we will obtain nothing, because we don't have any control of the term. So of course you can think about, but what is possible is first to have epsilon goes to 0, and then n goes to infinity. Okay, so now I will try to study all the term and with the information that we have. Okay, so for example, you know that u epsilon hn of u epsilon goes to u hn of u almost everywhere on infinity weak star, because the function is bounded. You have to recall that the support of the function hn is equal to minus 2n to n. So there is no difficulty to see that the limit as epsilon goes to 0 of the integral of the first term, hn of u phi, is equal to the integral of u hn of u h of u phi, and is equal for n large, that is the support of h included in minus n. So this term is equal to the integral of u h of u phi. So we have the behavior for of the first term. Another term which is easy to control. Oh, sorry, here I forget the f epsilon. So you know that f epsilon goes to f strongly in L1. In the same way, you can consider that the function hn of u epsilon h of u phi goes to hn of u h of u phi almost everywhere on an infinity weak star, because the function is uniformly bounded. So it implies that the limit as epsilon goes to 0 of the last term is equal to what we want, that is the right-hand side of our equation. And also we have the same trick, that is for n large, hn of u, h of u is equal to h of u. So we will have our right-hand side. So I had to develop. So now I will try to, so I have some place, so it is not very pedagogic, but I have some place in the beginning, in the top of the slide. So what I will try to, so for example, I will study this term. So this term, in fact, what we have that if I take the absolute value of this term, so the term with h prime, so I can what? No. I can make this this inequality, and to deduce that it is less than the L infinity norm of h, the L infinity norm of the function phi divided by n, and I can I am on the set where u epsilon is less than n, so I have this inequality. And you know, with the step 4, that the lim sup, the lim as n goes to plus infinity, the lim sup as epsilon goes to 0 of this term is equal to 0. Okay, so no, I don't know. So here it is important to understand that you don't know what is the limit of this term as epsilon goes to 0, but you have a uniform control with respect to n, and when n goes to plus infinity, this term goes to 0. Okay, no, so to so here you can see with in a similar way, you can show that, for example, when you have this term, for example, I can write this. So for example, this term, you can write that this term is equal to hn of u epsilon, r epsilon x tn, or t2n of u epsilon, because the support of the function hn is minus 2n to n, and then with all the information, this term goes to, in a weak sense, to hn of u, a x t2n of u, gradient 2n of u. Okay, so the last term is no, I think everything is okay here. It remains to study this term, but this, okay, so I will add a page. Okay, no, and okay, and in fact it is not similarly. You can see that hn of u epsilon h of u with all the information that we have, because it is all the terms are truncated. So sorry, I have yes, goes to weakly to hn of u, h of u, ax of u, gradient of u. So you have a weak limit in L2 of omega to the power n. So sorry, I will okay, so what we have, okay, we have all the information. So if you you put epsilon goes to 0, so what you have that the limit lambda u hn of u h of u phi plus the integral of h n u h u a x u du d phi plus the integral of hn of u h prime of u phi a x u du d phi plus a term which is our famous limit sup as epsilon goes to 0, okay, is equal to the integral of f hn of u h of u phi. Okay, now it is not complicated to pass to the limit as n goes to infinity. And because the lim sup, so I can, and because with the step 4, since also for n large, hn of u, h of u is equal to h of u, and also with the h prime of u, so is equal to h prime of u, almost everywhere, we have what we want, that is the integral of u h of u phi plus the term coming from the divergence operator, gradient of phi, plus the h prime of u, a x of u, gradient u, equal to the integral of f phi h of u. So here you obtain, so conclusion, u is the normalized solution. Okay, and remark, as I wrote, you can take phi as in an infinity, sorry, each one 0. Okay, so in fact, to pass to the limit is not very complicated. It is a little bit technical, and you have to follow the right order between passing to the limit as epsilon goes to 0 and passing to the limit as n goes to infinity. Okay, and also in the equality for n, you have to have in mind that h as a compact support, because if I don't have this property, of course I cannot pass to the limit as n goes to infinity. Okay, so in any term, for the term concerning the matrix field, it is very important to have that the support of I of h and the support of course of h prime is compact. So the two are compact. So it is why we can pass to the limit as n goes to infinity, and the fact that the decay of the energy is also very important. So here it is a conclusion of our existence result. So yesterday I have a question, and in fact the answer of the question is in this slide, because of course if we say that Ramai solution is a good candidate to the extension, of course it is important to be sure that, okay, but if f, so the first question is if I have a weak solution, so I am in the standard directional case, do we know if u is also a normalized solution? So of course it is true, because you have all the regularity and you can use hu phi as a test function in the equation. And the reverse is a little bit technical, but you have also the reverse. It is that if you assume that F belongs to L2, and if you assume that the matrix A is a bounded matrix field, okay, I need to know this, because if I don't have this property, I cannot expect to have a weak solution in the standard way. Then in fact U is a randomized solution if only if U belongs to H10 and is a weak solution of our equation. So how to prove this? So I will finish to explain this, because in fact we have, it is the proposition 3 is a consequence of the proposition 4, that is more or less the fact that Tk of U is an admissible test function for equation 1. And you know, moreover, that U belongs to L1. Okay, I have to write for lambda, of course, if lambda is is a positive real number. So just to give an idea of the proposition 4, which is very important, because in fact you have to if you remember the definition of randomized solution, to have so the proposition 4 is not a direct consequence of the equation that U verifies in the randomized sense, because in the randomized sense I have only h of U phi as test function, so I cannot, with the support of h, which is compact, so I cannot consider a function which does not have a compact support. So in fact, as in the proof of the existence, I will take in the formulation the function hn in place of h, and I can take Tk of U as a test function, because Tk of U belongs to H10 of omega and L infinity of omega. So what we have that the equation, which is written on not on the blackboard but on the slide, is verified for any n greater than 1. And then you can pass to the limit. So there is just a technical point, but you can you have the lim, you have the decay of the energy. So you obtain that this term goes to 0, because it is linked to 1 over n u less than 2n k a x of u gradient u. So it equal to 0, because f belongs to L1 and u. So it is important to know that u is finite almost everywhere. So you know that hn of u goes to 1 almost everywhere, and L infinity weak star. So the limit of the integral of f hn of u tku is equal to what we want, that is tku. Then you can also consider that for n large, that is n less than k, in fact the integral of hn u a x u gradient tk of u is in fact equal to the integral of, I don't need to have hn of u, it is equal to this term. So next you conclude with the Fatou lemma plus almost everywhere convergence theorem, and you can show that because I need lambda u belongs to L1, etc. And at the end you can conclude that you have some energy equation, that is the integral. You have this equality, which is very important. I will explain.
Prof. Olivier?
Yes, it's finished.
Yes, we have some
No,
questions.
you're right. So it is finished.
Yeah.
So you obtain the this energy equality. Okay. So thank you. So I will. Okay.
Yes.
I save the file and I will put on the website.
Okay. Okay. So, can you read the questions, or I will read?
Okay.
Question one. So I understood yesterday that the decay of the energy of U, proved before checking the variational formulation with H, was necessary for uniqueness and stability. But actually, you used also in the proof of the existence when passing to the limit in the integral of H and U f H prime of U, uh,
Okay.
phi A. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Can you read that?
I have the question. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
What is HN? So I have, what is the question? Sorry. Sorry. I don't.
Yeah.
So I have to understand. I have the question of Patricia.
Yes.
Do you want I tell you the question?
No. Okay. No, but I can read. I understand. Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, the decay. In fact, so it is, your question is related to this in the existence. So in fact, also it is, so the decay, the uniform control of the decay, the truncated energy, is also very important for the existence, because in fact it is, to understand, it is in fact due to the step 5, it is to obtain at the end the equation, because we have, if we, as I explained, you cannot use simply the test function h of u epsilon phi, because you have some weak convergence, so it is not possible. So in fact, the techniques are to use hn with the specific hn function, and to put n goes to infinity, and then of course we have to it is this decay is very important. Is it okay for the question, Patricia?
Yeah, thank you.
So in proposition 4, can we have lambda equal to 0? So so what is proposition 4? Because yes, you can have a lambda equal to 0, but of course you don't obtain that u belongs to L1 directly. So more okay. So in fact, you can recover that U is in L1, but with the Bocardo-Galouet estimate. But in fact, U is in L1 is specific to it depends of the kind of problem you have in mind. Because here I consider the specific case of quasi-linear equation. So I have, in some sense, some large Bocardo-Galouet estimate. But if you have the P Laplace operator for P near or close to 1, then you don't have u belongs to L1 if, for example, if you have lambda equal to 0. But of course, in proposition 4, I can consider lambda equal to 0. To compute the normalized solution numerically. So it is a very good question. So in fact, it is possible to prove. Okay, of course, so I'm not a specialist in numerical analysis, but if you consider, so because if I understand, sometimes the problem also in finite element or in finite volume is the question of to have some link between the mesh and the matrix to be sure that you have some positive matrix. I remember that there is problem. But for example, if you consider the Laplace operator, or you can put a diagonal matrix depending only on U, it is possible to show that the finite volume shape converge to the randomized solution. In fact, it was my first experience in finite numerical analysis, because I a PhD student, she studied some the link, and in fact, but in fact for L1 data, it is well known for a solution in the sense of distribution, because if you know Galwet or Dronu, they have also very strong activity, research activity in numerical analysis in the finite volume. So in fact, they prove for a long time that you can with finite volume, the approximation goes to the solution in the sense of distribution. And what we made with my PhD student is that in fact we can show a little bit more, because we can show that it goes to the unique, if you have uniqueness, randomized solution. And it was also done in the more difficult case, which is the parabolic case.
Okay, so we have plenty of questions in this box. So
yes,
maybe
for randomized solution, it is very complicated, because you will have some very nice talk of Readel Fulgencio. The difficulty between randomized solution and homogenization theory, it is if you want to study some homogenization problem with L1 data, so you have to mix the two theory, the two. It is so you have a very technical. You have two very technical, so it is very, very technical.
Okay, so maybe we can answer one more, and then we answer tomorrow the other questions, if it's okay. So we can rest for 5 minutes. So maybe one more.
Yes.
Could you please give us an example of a function f in L1 which you have in mind?
F in L1. So you can take, for example, in dimension 2. So in dimension function f in L1, so you can take 1 over the norm of x with some specific power to this. So I think it is like a function in L2. So you can, if you have a function in L2, you take this function to the power 2, and you have a function in L1. Okay, so in fact, it is just so what I think what is interesting is so you have the mathematical motivation, which is licit, okay, but it is interesting also to have some modelization motivation coming from the fluid mechanics or from the thermomechanic, for example, and to remark that it is in some sense natural to have some term in L1. Okay.
So I actually, Professor Miura is raising his hand, but
yes.
Yeah, did you see that? But so, anyway, maybe we can answer this tomorrow if you.
Yeah.
Think.
Yes.
Yes.
For
The other one.
yes. Just for the last question, I see. I don't know how to manage Galerkin method, and but I think there was a paper of I don't remember all the authors, but I remember that there is almost everywhere François Murat, and there was a link between I think randomized solution and finite element method. Okay.
Okay. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So we will continue our talk tomorrow, right?
Yes.
We still have one, so we can, if they have still questions, we can entertain them tomorrow. Okay. So thank you so much. Maybe we can rest for 5 minutes, no, and then we proceed with Professor Miura's talk.
Okay.
Thank you.
I stop the share and I will send my slide. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.